All right, thanks everybody for hopping on with us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse Hill, and I'm the president at Tier 3 IT Solutions. And today we're going to be covering a topic that some people have a lot of interest in, others, maybe not so much. But really what we're going to be diving into is a little bit more about how technology, when planned and implemented properly, can be a driver in helping you to achieve business goals and solve business challenges. And, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to leverage, this thinking, this methodology to help build stronger businesses, which are organizations that are more profitable, more efficient, better places to work, more competitive. If you do have any questions or comments as we go through today, please just make sure to use the chat or the Q&A, and Tin will be monitoring that, and I'll do our best to answer any of that you may have. Right, let me just... Tin, do you actually want to remove the note takers, please?
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you. So you can see the agenda, you can read through it here. Ultimately the goal is that by the end of the session, we want you to help understand how to spot where your technology budget may be falling short. Start this shift of mindset from spending on technology to investing in technology. We'll talk a little bit about the topic of technology debt, and how this, so-called digital drag, is, incurring costs in your business that aren't always easy to understand and conceptualize. And, of course, if you want to talk about this any further after today, please let me know. On this particular topic, we actually have an entire course that we developed, that we delivered, and that we run our clients through to help them understand more in depth about how to think about your technology investments, how to decide where to put your money, how to measure return on that. And so if you want to learn more about that, let me know. So what we see is that too many businesses, they throw money at technology, or they struggle to to assign money to the technology because they either don't see the impact, or they don't understand how it might be impacting their business. So this particular slide here, when I think about this very first bullet point, the underappreciated value and impact, I get into discussions quite regularly with other businesses, business owners, management teams, those types of things, and there's always a reluctance to increase spending or take on a new subscription or investment or strategic initiative in a business. And it baffles my mind sometimes, because there are very few areas where you can invest money that will impact your organization as broadly as technology. Think about your operation and what would happen if you didn't have computers available to your team tomorrow. And so to me, of course, I'm a little biased. I'm in the IT space. I really feel that there's a great opportunity as you are growing and developing your business to make sure that you're investing the money in a thoughtful, productive way. Some of the other items that we run into here where organizations feel like maybe they've not seen the ROI they would hope for is that the traditional kind of IT relationship is that the technology providers install platforms for you, and then they kind of are hands off. And those investments only come when something is broken, is no longer meeting our expectations, is essentially dragging the business down. And so what we want to obviously kind of recognize is that if we're constantly in what is today's problem? What is, the short-term solution to this? It's always going to be a cost instead of an investment. The silo decision making is one thing also we see where, particularly when organizations get to a certain size, usually 15, 20, 30 people, they start having areas of specialization within the organization. And they don't always know what the other departments and teams are doing. So by kind of bringing the teams together and talking more cohesively about where the business is going and how technology can help get you there, it'll help you make sure that the investments either aren't being duplicated or made redundant across different departments. So obviously what we want as business people is I think we all want our budgets and our technology budgets in particular to be seen as something that is helping us drive our business forward, that's helping us achieve our goals and overcome challenges, and not just a necessary expense. If we're treating IT as an enabler, then that opens up opportunities beyond just fixing what's broken, because it allows us to think further down the line. It allows us to understand the impacts of those investments. And so we want to make sure that as we're investing in technology, that we're creating more value in your organization, that we're optimizing the workflows and the efficiency, the client service mechanisms that you have. And we want to avoid getting stuck in that reactive maintenance focused mindset, because then all we're thinking about is last week's problems instead of next month's opportunities. So we need to shift into more strategic, growth-driven mindsets around these investments. And this pace of change, I think, is really actually accelerating. So we need to be reviewing our investment strategies, more frequently. Here we are, end of 2025. Well, let's all remember that 3 years ago, AI was not a discussion that most of us were having. And today it's driving a lot of the decisions and discussions and opportunities that businesses will have in the next 5, 10, 30 years. So that's really what we talk about sometimes when we get into the outdated spending habits. There's still a lot of businesses that focus and rely on on-premise technologies and kind of just bumping up the legacy systems that maybe they've been using, as opposed to taking a look at what the true opportunities of technology are today. So we talk about this topic, technology debt, and really this is something that builds up in businesses over time. It's typically the result of choosing the quick or the easy solution that's going to solve today's problem, but that may not give the capacity or the ability to adapt and expand in the future, which ultimately means you end up having to upgrade it or replace it or do something different or adapt to that shortcoming, as opposed to really thinking about those investments ahead of time. So we start off and talk about employee performance here, and truth be told, this is one that we hear a lot about. Every time I meet with a potential new client and we hear about delays in technology, things are slow, they're locking up on them, the software, the technology platforms aren't working the way they might expect. Well, that is driving cost, because it means your team is not as productive, as efficient, as effective as they could or they should be if that technology was truly supporting them. It's often easier to think about, what is the cost to your business of an unexpected outage? A lot of businesses can do the math and they say, well, we have X number of employees who should produce X amount of revenue, who have X amount of cost. Multiply that by an hour of downtime or a day of downtime, and you start to realize that some of the technology investments that a business is faced with, although the dollar amount might seem significant in the moment, when you compare it to the effects that it has on your business, it's actually fairly minimal. We talk about the security risks, and of course, as I mentioned just a moment ago, technology is moving faster now than ever. And that's the same with cybersecurity. AI platforms are just accelerating the ways that the cyber criminals are able to find exploits and design campaigns to try to take advantage of them. There's a couple other items on here about innovation and integrating new systems, and this again is just recognizing that if you've been kind of maintaining and limping along on an older platform, well, when true innovations like AI become available, you may not be able to adapt it as effectively and quickly as one of your competitors who has been maintaining their systems and keeping them up to date. So we want to avoid that technology debt. But it doesn't just appear out of the blue. Like we said, it comes out of the choices that you're making every day when you're under pressure. So when we talk about being rushed to meet deadlines, we are all running businesses. We all have pressures on us from customers and employees and vendors and governments and cyber criminals and all those types of things. And so there's a pressure to move fast. And of course, we have to operate in that mode to be effective and competitive. But at the same time, if we don't have a forward-looking plan, we can't make good investment decisions beyond what we can see. I read an analogy the other day about kind of planning your life. It's great to have a plan where you want to go, but it's like driving through the fog with your headlights on. You can see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. And that's one kind of philosophy, but we want to extend our planning and our vision out further so that we can make good decisions. These outdated and unsupported systems, there's just a life cycle around technology that it's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. It's not always easy having that conversation with folks to let them know that there's a reason that they're being forced to make an upgrade. But staying on those legacy platforms exposes you to risk. It exposes you to performance issues, compatibility problems, all the things we've talked about before. And then as we get down the list here, really the documentation, the architectural decisions, these are really things that you need to have a strong IT function within your organization to make sure that there's a way to transition that knowledge from one person or one group to another. I hate to say it, but IT professionals, unless you really make it a part of their priorities, aren't great at sharing information. So you want to make sure that you understand what you have, how you got here, where you're going in the future, and work that into that business planning process. So we've talked a little bit about some of the issues around technology debt, and one of them is this topic of what they call digital drag. And this is the weight that a business is carrying when its technology isn't optimized. And you've probably all experienced this where you want to do something one way, but the systems just won't allow you because you don't have them configured properly. You don't have the right licensing. You don't have the right physical device. And so it causes these items that you see here. Of course, to me, starting from the bottom going up, I think one of the biggest things that we always need to think about is how is technology allowing us or enabling us to serve our customers in the best, most engaging, most efficient, most effective way. And you've all been there when you're out of business, you're trying to make a transaction and they say something like, oh, sorry, my computers are just really slow today. Or I can't get that for you. My computer's not working right now. And those types of issues are cues that really intelligent customers will pick up on, and they'll go, geez, if they're not necessarily maintaining their computer systems in a way for them to meet my needs, how are they doing the rest of the things behind the scene? This, issue can kind of work its way up here, can make challenges around scaling. If you don't have the design and the horsepower and the systems to support adding another location or adding another department, right? You can understand how that ends up causing issues. And then the top two on here, the stagnant innovation and the delayed response to market changes. Again, we kind of referenced it, how AI has changed the game completely in the last 3 years. The businesses, the organizations who were up to date, adapted faster, and have been able to implement solutions easier than organizations who were still running on legacy technologies. And that digital drag, that concept, it's not just a technology problem, it bleeds into other areas of your budget in intangible ways. We talk about employee productivity. If you had a team of 20 people and their productivity was being, impacted negatively because your technology hasn't kept up, I mean, you have to ask the question, could we do this same amount of work with 15 people? Or maybe with the 20 people, we actually can take on another 20, 30, 60% workload without having to staff up. And so these costs, they are something you're incurring, even if you can't see it. Other examples, when we go back to unexpected outages, again, if your people are sitting and waiting for tech support, they're not being productive. How much is that costing you over time, right? And again, those outages, they turn into missed opportunities, clients who decide to go somewhere else because they're not getting the experience that they expect, which then, as you can see, as we go down here, causes that reactive cycle where we're patching crises instead of planning the upgrades. We're making emergency fixes and last minute spending, which may or may not, be planned for and is going to strain your budget. And then this bottom point on here, I do want to point out, being in the IT space, technology is surrounded by frustration, and frustrated employees are less productive. They share that frustration with their coworkers. They might even share it with your clients and your vendors and your partners. And ultimately, this can lead to higher employee churn over time. And this is one of those, again, intangibles. Hopefully, at some point, you've calculated what is the cost to your business to replace an employee as opposed to empowering an existing one. So when we talk about technology planning, we want it to be a strategic alignment exercise, meaning what are the business's goals? What are the challenges that are keeping them from achieving those goals? And we're talking business goals and business challenges. Technology needs to be designed in a thoughtful way. The answer is not always more technology. Sometimes the answer is actually removing technology or streamlining or integrating or outsourcing sections of it. So really truly understanding the business's objectives, thinking not from a technology first mindset, but from a business first mindset. And then going into that cost versus value discussion and evaluation. Again, so many times we hear discussions around the dollar cost of a project as opposed to the projected value of that investment. And again, if it's one of those things that can save your team members an hour a week, well, let's just do the math and figure out what that means in the big picture. And if you have 20, 40, 80 people on your team, saving an hour a week adds up fast. And then the last point here, continuous revision. The one thing about technology we've discussed is that it's moving really quickly, changing fast. You need to constantly be taking a look at what does our plan say? Where are we at in the plan? Has anything changed since then? Where are we going next? And make sure that it's continuously realigned to your business's current objectives. So you'll always get more from your technology when that investment mindset comes into play, when you have a clear purpose, when you have measurable goals. And so it doesn't hurt to think about, how are you measuring your return on investment, your ROI? Because when you can connect your technology spend to the big picture goals that you have, you can then start to see the impact that it's having on your growth, your revenues, your profitability, your efficiency, all of those types of things. Good technology planning helps you make better decisions because you know that those investments are going to align with and support your business priorities, right? Again, going back to the last one, we want to think not what technology do we want to implement this year, but where is the business trying to get? And does technology have a role in supporting us along that road? Growth accelerates, when IT is fully aligned with the system. So you can launch products faster, serve clients better, collect, revenue faster. And, it really kind of ties into that agility where having good data and having good data systems 5, 10 years ago, again, allowed businesses to transition into, modern AI platforms much faster than those that hadn't organized themselves that way. So we want to take and move from the cost to the investment side, and making that happen. It isn't an accident. It's a discipline and it's a structure, and you can see it here. It really starts by just taking a minute, looking at what do you have, how is it set up, is it supporting our goals, where do we have technology debt, what are our people and our customers and our vendors telling us, what are the opportunities in the market, and then make sure that when you're putting something onto your investment plan that it aligns with those business goals. If it's not helping you, then we need to think about, can that be removed? Can it be reallocated? Is there a better way for us to use, that resource, that money, than what we had originally thought? Because in business, I'm sure many of you recognize this, that it's better to do, a couple of things completely and really well than it is to do a whole bunch of things halfway and really poorly. So we want to prioritize for impact. And make sure that when we're taking on these projects, that it's setting us up for that growth that we're chasing. That flexibility aspect in there, we often find there's a lot of wisdom in our industry that clients should be on multi-year agreements. And, I really struggle with that because who knows what 2026 is going to bring in terms of technology opportunity. None of us knew how big of an impact AI was going to have, and the opportunity it would create, and what it might cost to do it. So the businesses that have some flexibility in their budgets are the ones, again, who can adapt to that. And then, of course, if you want some professional advice on this, a strategic IT provider can help you with this. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have an entire course that we've developed on this, along with a workshop and resources and all kinds of great things. And of course, we have people on our team who assist our clients in these processes. So really, when it comes down to it, a strategic IT partner is going to help you plan, prioritize, and execute around your technology strategy, and using that technology strategy to help align with your business goals so that you can move faster, achieve more, and empower your people to run, a better business. So I really appreciate everybody hopping on with us today. I hope that the information was what you were expecting, and that if you have any questions, you feel comfortable reaching out, and we'd love to help you. We will stick around and just take a look at the chat and the Q&A, make sure we've taken care of all of those. But once again, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Talk soon.